This Dominate the Diamond show is brought to you by Manscaped. Who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming champions of the world? Manscaped offers precision, engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped just launched their 4th generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. That's right, you heard it right, the 4.0. Join over 2 million men that have tried this product. Imagine shaving with a sleek, well-designed, and optimized trimmer that makes shaving time your favorite time in the bathroom. I'm one of the first people to try the new 4.0, and I'm blown away by the performance. The craftsmanship and details on the 4.0 are next level, focusing on intelligent functionality and incredibly comfortable grooming experience to make the me time the best time and enhance your confidence with some nice, smooth boys. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code DOMINATE20 at manscaped.com. Your balls will thank you later. And that's the ball game. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Dominate the Diamond show. We're here at Zone Sports Academy. I'm Duke Baxter, here with Steve Nicorak, and we have an awesome show for you today. The purpose of this show is to educate coaches, motivate players, and to help everyone with this great game of baseball, help them dominate the diamond on and off the field. So we have a bunch of questions that have been asked to us, and Coach Steve is going to kind of tell you all how the format is going to go today.
Yeah, guys. So every week we have 3, sometimes 4 topics that we like to cover, but we got some great feedback from last week's show with the live Q&A session. So we decided for today we're going to go all live Q&A. We have a couple questions here that were submitted ahead of time, and be sure to post your comments, questions, concerns on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and we'll be sure to pull them up for next week's show. So we're going to get started right here with a submitted question. First one. I am starting an 11U team. Most boys have played tournament ball at 9U and 10U. However, neither teams have incorporated in the past any type of stretching prior to the games or practices. Is it necessary for all kids or more focused on just pitchers? What are your thoughts? Coach, that's a good question. I think we like to always incorporate a dynamic warm-up, regardless of the age, regardless of the position, and especially at that 11U age level where everybody plays multiple positions. Some kids pitch, some kids catch. Most kids will play all over the place. We love doing a dynamic warm-up first. It kind of sets a tone for the day. We like to assign a leader for that stretch each day, so it gives a new player an opportunity to kind of be the captain of the day, lead the stretch, lead the dynamic warm-up. And really at that 9, 10, 11U age, I mean, we used to be able to wake up and roll out of bed and play, but again, it sets the tempo, it kind of sets the energy level and the focus for that day, and it gets their bodies warmed up and loose. Obviously, for the pitchers, it's more important that they do more arm care, they do their band work, they do their good stretching program. But for your younger players, I would definitely recommend stretching, doing a full warm-up, getting their bodies hot. Really, the goal at that age is to break a sweat, to get their bodies warm, get them loose and ready, for first pitch. So, it could be something 5-10 minutes long max, just, some high knees, some butt kicks, some side shuffles, some karaoke, some back pedal. I like to incorporate some steel breaks towards the end. And then, once they finish with that, then they can go right into their throwing program. We take some batting practice either in the cages or, if there are no cages, we use smush balls. Once they get their swings in, then we try to do some sort of simulated infield outfield. On some fields, you're not allowed on the dirt. So we do some fly balls and ground balls in the outfield. Again, it keeps them going. We get there an hour early every single time before each game. It gets them warmed up. It gets them locked in and focused and ready to roll for that first pitch. But I think it's a good question. We see a lot of teams, they do a show and go. They show up 5 minutes before first pitch and they roll out there. Again, you're not seeing a ton of pulled hamstrings or muscles at that age because the kids have probably been running around all day anyway. But I think it's a really good way to get your kids locked in and focused and just ready to play that day. We have question number 2, and I'm going to pass it off to Duke from Coach Adam. Do you have any suggestions on when to utilize a bunt versus allowing the players to swing? This will be for our 11U team. I know it depends on the game situation, but how do you determine a sacrifice is worth getting a base runner around versus allowing the hitter to take a swing?
I think this is a good question because a lot of people, when you even talk about the word bunt, there's so many coaches out there that bash bunting, and think kids should just hit and never sacrifice. But at the end of the day, you have to make sure that you practice bunting in practice in order to make sure that when you put the call on, the guy's going to actually get the bunt down. Sometimes you get into a situation where you have a runner on second base and no outs, and maybe that hitter's not good at hitting the ball to the right side to advance the runner to third, and a bunt's your best option. That way he bunts it, the guy gets to third, and now he's only 90 feet away from scoring. So I think that's a really important part, is know who the good bunters are. Make sure your team is practicing bunting. Also work on hitting the balls to opposite field, so that way which to do. But I think that having a bunt and putting a bunt play on is very disruptive a lot of times for the defense, because a lot of teams don't work on bunt coverages. You go to lay a bunt down next, the first baseman charges, the second baseman forgets to cover first, and now the guy throws it in, and throws the ball away, or the third baseman stays, the pitcher comes over, and they don't know what to do. So I do think that there's a time and a place for bunting. Just make sure that you do practice it. But I think that runner on second base and no outs, that's pretty much the best situation of when you're going to call a bunt, trying to get that runner over to third base. But I think that, bunting is a huge part of the game. Just make sure you practice it, because there's nothing worse than putting the bunt sign on, a kid fouling it off or taking a pitch, and now he has one strike, and now he's, now you're wondering, do I put it on again? Do I not put it on again? Now he fouls one off, the guy ends up striking out, and you're like, I should have just had him hit. No, he should have got the bunt down. So make sure you practice bunting and make sure that your players are confident and comfortable with bunting. But I think it's, it's definitely a good tool, especially your fast guys. Bunting for a base hit, when you see the third baseman playing real far back, a bunt's like an automatic hit. So to be able to have your players, bunt for a hit is a huge weapon for a lot of players. So
yeah, I think you're going to get to a point too where they're going to have to know how to bunt down the road. They might be the 3-hitter right now, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be the 3-hitter in middle school or in high school. And I remember I was in spring training in 2012, and Jerry Hairston, he always made us bunt before we hit in the cages. And I mean, we had our cleanup hitter up there bunting, and guys didn't know how to bunt. And he always used to say, you might not need to bunt now, but trust me, at some point you're going to have to get a bunt down. He always told us a story that there was a guy, he batted third in rookie ball, in short season A, single A, double A, triple A. He batted third on every team he was on throughout the minor leagues. Never bunted, but he had to practice it every day. He got his first call up to the big leagues, and he was batting 8th that day. And his first big league at bat, he had to get a sacrifice bunt down, and he got it down. And he told us that story every single time we were out there. We're in Arizona, it's 105 degrees, and nobody wanted to practice bunting. But again, I mean, obviously that's at the highest of levels. Even at the youth levels going into high school, there's going to be times you have to get a sacrifice bunt down. And it's like Duke said, it's important to be able to know how to bunt, even though you might not use it that often. So I think that's a really good question, Coach. We got a good one here from Coach Bryce. What are your thoughts on players approaching the coach regarding playing time? Any comments on parents discussing it with the coaches as well? Coach Bryce, that's a good one, man. I love that question. And, as a coach, I try to keep an open door policy with the players. If it's, where they're batting in the lineup, or, maybe positioning on the field, or just playing time in general, I will always have an open communication with the player. And I think it shows some initiative on their part, showing up, being concerned, maybe just asking, Coach, what do I have to do to bump up in the lineup? Or what do I have to do to get more innings at shortstop? Or, I sat 3 innings. What can I do to help the team win? Those are questions that I think are awesome to hear from a kid. And for me as a coach, it shows that the kid wants to play. He wants to help. He wants to be part of the team. Now, again, that's not the player coming up to me saying, well, I'm hitting better than Johnny. I'm hitting better than Tommy. Why am I batting below them? I'm not here to compare players, but I will, as a coach, answer that question and say, hey, I think you need to work on A, B, and C. to help the team win a little bit more. I think you need to do this a little bit better in order to move up in the lineup, or maybe get a few more innings at shortstop or in center field. I don't love it when parents do it. I love it when the kids come to me, because it shows some initiative on their part. Those are the tough conversations that younger players need to learn how to have, because as they get older, the coaches do not want to hear from the parents. All right. I would say it's probably a zero communication policy when they get to, later years in high school and especially college ball. But at the young ages, we want to teach our players it is an open door. Come up, discuss playing time, discuss, your flaws, how you're doing as a player. And I love that communication back and forth, because, again, it allows me to get in that player's head a little bit. It allows me to kind of see where they're coming from, what they're thinking about. And, most parents are blind to their own kid, right? They might think that they're the best player on the team no matter what. And, we have a 24-hour policy here at Zone, where parents are not allowed to approach the coaches within the first 24 hours after the last pitch of a game. And I think that's important too, because sometimes we discussed it 2 weeks ago, sometimes tempers are high. Maybe you just lost a bad game, and neither the parent or the coach really wants to have that conversation. So we have a 24-hour policy. But again, I would put that ownership on the player to approach that coach, teach them how to have that tough conversation, teach them how to take criticism for the first time. And really, as a coach, you should appreciate that. You should love the fact that your players are there wanting to get better, wanting to help the team win. So again, just to answer your question, have the players do it instead of the parents, and players, you should have the confidence to approach your coaches, and coaches, be approachable, right? Don't be the guy that is just going to, shut a player down. They're coming to you for a reason. If they have a comment or a question, or, the favorite wording that I like is, what can I do to help my team win? What can I do to, be a bigger part of this team? This way you give them some stuff to work on their own. If they don't do it, well, their playing time is probably not going to change. But a lot of the times you'll see that player take ownership and start to do some practice on their own, and, work a little bit harder in practice. And, before you know it, they might be batting higher in the lineup, or they might be playing more innings in the positions on the field that they want to play. But Coach Bryce, I think that's an awesome question. You got anything to add to that?
Nope. Just moving on to Coach Tommy.
Let's do it.
Coach Tommy said, what are your thoughts on multi-sport athletes? It seems like programs are running year-round sports for athletes now. Are they at a disadvantage not playing for the full year? I think that's a great question, because I think a lot of people, get into that situation of like, oh, Johnny's playing year-round. His skills are gonna be higher. I play 3 sports, and I remember, in high school, I played baseball, basketball, and football. And once I was a sophomore, it was like I couldn't do all 3. I liked all 3. I didn't love all 3. I loved football and baseball. But basketball was kind of that sport right in the middle, to where they all rolled right into each other. And I was like never really ready for my baseball season, because basketball ran right into it. So I did football. Then I was able to train for baseball, do baseball, and that sort of thing. But I do, what we do here is we pretty much have two separate tryouts. We have our spring and summer tryouts, but then we have fall tryouts, because there are a lot of kids that play football, and we don't want to hold it against those kids or make it like it's a year-round program to where, well, if you play football, then you can't be on our teams. We want to promote that. We feel that's super important. I mean, if you talk to college coaches across the board, they're all saying how they want multi-sport athletes. They want kids that are constantly working on different skill sets. Think about basketball. You're cutting, you're running, you're moving, you're jumping. Then you're playing football. So they're totally different skill sets, and it turns you into a better athlete. And the better athlete you are, the better you're going to be at baseball and working on those sort of skills. I do think there comes a time where, when you want to really focus on getting your skills better, that doing 9 million different sports, can get very difficult and kind of damper your ability to really hone in and practice. But definitely not at 9, 10, 11, and 12. Like, play as many sports as you can, because you never know what you're going to be best at, what you're going to love the most. So, make time for those things, because I think all sports really turns you into a better athlete.
That's spot on right there. I played as many sports as I possibly could until I couldn't. And, I remember at the end of basketball season, I couldn't wait for baseball. At the end of baseball, I couldn't wait for football. And, it was kind of just that year-round, track. And like Duke said, the overall athleticism, I think, is the biggest piece. I think we got a live question here from Coach Jason. an 11U team, how do you keep the intensity of the team's intensity up all game, especially when they get behind? We notice when the team's energy goes down during the game, and then the mental errors occur. Coach, I think that's a good one, man. One thing that I like to do with my team is I try to play each inning like it's its own game. So we'll go out there and say, let's win this inning. Let's worry about these 3 outs and then our 3 outs at the plate. Let's worry about winning this inning as opposed to the big picture. You saw it the other night in the College World Series. Mississippi State hit a home run in the first inning. The bottom of the first came around. Vanderbilt scored 7. Couple walks, couple hit batters, a home run, a double, and it's 7-1 at that point. And then if they could have easily just folded and kind of gave the game away, especially going up against somebody like Jack Leiter who doesn't give up 7 runs. But if you look at the rest of the game, Mississippi State won the rest of the game. They ended up losing 8-2, but they just battled and they worked. And I think it's tough, especially when you're dealing with kids, especially at the 11U age level. They go down big. It's like, this game's done already. Well, we got to find a way to motivate our guys and say, forget about that first inning. Let's win this one. Let's get 1 run this inning and then worry about the second inning and then third inning. And before you know it, you start to chip away little by little. You get to the 5th, 6th inning, and now we have a ball game instead of we got to score 6 or 7 runs this inning. So I think that's really important. Short memory, you got to flush it, and you got to take it inning by inning and just try to do your best to battle and go from there. I think incorporating some fun things with your team too. Duke and I coached 13U together last year or 2 years ago. And, our team motto was all out. We're going to go all out for our team every pitch of every game. And, we started saying all out before we took the field. They'd be out on the field saying all out to each other. We're laying out for balls. We're diving. We're hustling down the first baseline. Our 2-strike approach is going to be way tougher. Whatever we have to do, to help our team win, we are going to go all out on every single pitch. And again, that's kind of a way to make that big game into a bunch of individual smaller games to try to chip away. Score 1 run here, score 1 run next inning, and now we start to chip away at that lead as opposed to, man, we're down 7 after 1. What are we going to do? We're down 7, and, this is a long road back. But in the big scheme of things, you break it up into 6 or 7 individual games. You try to win each inning. Now you're giving your team a better opportunity to battle back, and it seems more feasible.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We got a YouTube question here. Coach J. Coe, I have a very experienced assistant coach, and he keeps mentioning the unwritten rules of baseball, primarily with base running. What can I do to learn these rules? I think that's a good question, right? I mean, people say that all the time, like, oh, it's an unwritten rule of baseball, and if you never played the game or have a lot of experience in the game with older, advanced coaches, you don't know what some of those rules are, and they constantly change. In that, one of the rules that we had in college was, once you got over 8 to 10 runs, you stopped stealing, right? You stopped stealing. You kind of didn't want to embarrass the other team. You'd only go. But then another coach would say, well, we're only going to steal, if the ball goes by the catcher, we're then going to go, because it's more embarrassing not going on situations like that. But now with tournament ball, it's like the opposite, because you can 10 run, you can 12 run, you can 15 run a team. You can then manage your pitching. So if if you score 10 runs in the second inning and you're up 10-0, well, if you can get the 15 runs by the 4th inning, the game's over. You're saving pitching. So it's almost like that unwritten rule of, we don't want to embarrass the other team. It's almost like, well, in order to win the game quicker, you want to score runs. So I think that those unwritten rules kind of, depending on what age you're talking about and what league you're in and what kind of tournament you're in, there's all different things that, that kind of go into play.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, tournament ball is tough because we're going through it now with our 15U group. We're playing 8 games over a 4-day span with a 12-man roster. So we only have so many arms. So what I try to just tell our guys, we're going to respect the game and we're going to respect the other team. We're going to continue to play hard. We're going to have great at-bats. We're going to work hard on dirt ball reads. We're going to run the bases hard. We're going to go 1st to 3rd when we can. But if we go up real big, 8, 9, 10 runs, we're going to tone it back on stealing bases, especially if you're in a game where maybe the catcher's struggling and you're really just head and shoulders above the other team, right? We're never going to go out there to try to embarrass another team, but we are going to play hard, right? And that means, like I mentioned, the dirt balls, the pass balls, going 1st to 3rd on a base hit, but not turning it into a merry-go-round where we're just stealing base after base and just taking complete advantage of maybe, a team that shouldn't be playing against you that day. So really just respecting it. But Coach, I think that's a good question. I think you're just the more experience you have, those are kind of the things that we learned as we got older. And, the more and more we played and coached, you kind of get a feel for those rules and the situations. But I think in terms of your question about base running, that 8 runs is probably a good benchmark for you when to really stop stealing bases. But you'll see guys take advantage of it. They'll try to take advantage, and especially if you've got a below average catcher and they can run, they're gonna steal bases. I see guys do it on a bunt, or I'm sorry, on a walk. On a walk, they'll get a walk with a runner on third, and they'll just sprint right to second base, trying to take advantage. Like, that's not real baseball. That's just a coach taking advantage of an 8-year-old that can't reach second base on a throw. And those are the kind of things you gotta look out for, and just always try to respect the game, respect the other team, and play hard, but play the right way.
We got a good question. Jason Edwards, best ways to build confidence at the plate, getting the kids to be more aggressive. Coach Edwards, what age ball player are we talking about? Because a lot of times, some of the younger players are just timid because they're, whether it's first time coach player pitch or coach pitch, or, I think everything kind of goes into play there. But building confidence at the plate is, really getting them to understand, swinging hard, kind of getting the kids all pumped up, giving them a routine while they're at the plate. What do they do about, we talked about this a lot last week. Coach Steve was talking about, when you're slumping, things to do and how to build a routine at the plate, from taking in your a good deep breath to inhaling and exhaling, to looking at the barrel of your bat, to getting in your stance, making sure your feet are set in the batter's box and going up there with an aggressive mindset, telling yourself, I'm going to get a hit. I'm going to drive this ball. I can't wait to get a strike. And also thinking that every pitch is going to be a strike. A lot of times kids will get in the batter's box, they'll hold the bat, they'll see the ball, and then they'll get ready to hit, opposed to being ready to hit, anticipating a good pitch, and then driving through the ball. And also letting them know that, hey, if you swing and miss, you have 3 strikes. I'd rather see you swing and miss 3 times than to go up there watching strike 1, watching strike 2, then maybe swinging at strike 3 and fouling it off, or swinging and missing it, or barely putting it in play. So you have to help them build their confidence up, but it starts in practice. It starts in your pregame routine. It starts with how you talk to them and how you get them to talk to themselves. So the more confident they are, the tougher of an out they're going to be.
Yeah, and you as a coach, you just need to let your players know that you believe in them. Right? They're going to strike out. They're going to look bad. They're going to swing and miss. But just teaching them that it's okay to strike out. It's okay to get out. But, you're much better off going up there, giving yourself 3 aggressive chances to hit the ball hard. Then, like Duke mentioned, you take strike 1, you take strike 2. Now, all of a sudden, you're in defensive mode, and you're just in there just trying not to get out. But, I think that's a great question, and I think it starts with us as coaches. It starts with the parents at home, letting the kids know, you might go for 3 with 3 strikeouts today. That's baseball. That's softball. That's going to happen. It's not the end of the day. And, in the big scheme of things, I try to tell our guys, you're playing 13U baseball. You're not going to remember how many times you struck out today. Right now, you feel so much pressure. You feel so much anxiety. Oh, man, I'm batting low in the order. My teammates don't believe in me. My coach is going to yell at me. My parents are yelling at me. Give them the freedom to just go up there, have fun, enjoy it, and go compete. Let it fly, swing hard, be on time. And, at the end of the day, if you can go back to the dugout and say, I was on time and I was aggressive, good things are going to happen. But if you go back to the dugout and you say, I struck out, but I took the first 2 pitches because I wasn't really ready to hit, and then I struck out on a slider in the dirt, just because I was being defensive, well, that's not a good aggressive approach. So, again, it starts from us as coaches, and it starts with the parents, giving them the confidence to fail, because it's gonna happen.
Nice. Coach Jason says, how do you prepare your team against a better team in your league? And I think we've all faced that, right? That team that you're getting ready to play, and you're like, oh man, this is going to be a battle. This is going to be a tough one. Maybe they've beaten you 3 times, and but Steve, we always go back to the win each inning. Try to win the inning, and then try to mark it down on a dry erase board, something in the dugout. So it's like you're trying to win the innings, and then hopefully over the course of the game, you win the game. Because sometimes you get that blow up inning, like Steve said, and you give up 7 runs and you're like, man, but you maybe won 5 innings that game. So yeah, you lost the game 7-2, or, but maybe you, over the course of the innings, you won a couple innings, scoring a couple of runs, and like, look, guys, we can hang with them. We can do this. We can do that. So I think that, trying to get them excited about that, and just realizing that they're the same age as you, they're the same everything. Like, you still got to play the game. We still have to play the game. We're trying to play flawless. We're going to have a good game, and we're going to be prepared for the game. That's
it. I mean, we did it last weekend. We played a team that was probably head and shoulders taller than us, bigger than us, stronger than us, and my message to the team was, this team's coming in here anticipating that they are going to roll right over us. And we have 2 options. We can either lay down and say, man, they were better than us. They beat us, and they were just all around a better team. Or we're going to fight, and we're going to fight, and we're going to grind. And sometimes it's those teams that are better. The second you put a little bit of pressure on them, they start to fold a little bit, right? But if we just lay down in the first inning and we're afraid of their pitcher, we're afraid of their coach, we're afraid of their 3 and 4 hitter, and we're playing defensive, it's like anything. If you show up with any doubt in your head, you're probably going to lose. But if you can somehow find a way to motivate your players before the game, and like Duke said, take it inning by inning, pitch by pitch, whatever we got to do, pass the bat on to the next guy. Go all out on defense. Do whatever you got to do to help your team win today, and try to motivate them and give them the confidence that this team thinks they're going to roll all over us. We have 2 options. We're either going to lay down and accept it and say, well, they were better than us, they should have beaten us, or we're going to give them a battle today. And just like Duke said, one pitch at a time, 1 inning at a time, go out there and battle with them.
This is a good topic right here. How do you deal with selfish players? Players that only worry about what they do and are upset if the kid hits better or pitches better than them that weekend. Then they try to hide it. Sometimes I feel like we are competing against each other instead of the other team. That's good. There's a lot of teams like that, right? There's teams have those kind of players. There's those kind of teams. One of the things that we like to do is try to create an environment that does team stuff opposed to who did better. And what I'm talking about is we have a quality at bat chart. So when hitters go up, we have all the different quality at bats. And every time a hitter has a quality at bat, we keep adding them up. And we say, listen, as a team, if we can get 58 quality at bats, we're most likely going to win the game. Okay, if we dive for X amount of balls, if we do this, if we do that. So it's almost like you're talking about all the things that the team can do, not just one person. Well, Johnny got 3 hits and Mikey got 0. Well, maybe Mikey dove for 2 balls, struck out 2 guys, and scored the game-winning run. Well, that's a great day. So there's more to the game than just how many strikeouts did I have or how many hits did I have. How did I help the team improve? But that starts with us as a coach to build that culture into the team, because what's probably happening? Those same kids, when they get home, all their parents can talk about is, how many hits did you get? How many this did you get? So it starts at home. And us as coaches, sometimes that's what we're battling against. We're battling against the kid that all his mom and dad care about is how many hits he got. So he doesn't know any better than to kind of do the same thing. Well, I have to be the best on the team. I have to get the most hits. So we as a coach and a coaching staff have to create that environment to where, hey, let's try to get our 51 quality at bats. Let's try to dive for X amount of balls. Let's see how we can do this and that as a team. We do it in practice all the time. Instead of saying, okay, who wins by throwing the most strikes? Well, how fast can we get to 58 strikes? And we have all the kids lining up and we're throwing into a target, so it's almost like more team-oriented stuff. Don't get me wrong. We do a ton of stuff that's competing against themselves and competing against one another as well, because competition is great. But we also do things that's team-oriented as well, so that we are building the culture of we win as a team, we lose as a team. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, and it's that we over me mentality. It's teaching your players that sometimes you're not going to have the best day at the plate, but you can contribute in other ways. And one last piece I have for that is coaches take notes, and I say it a lot during games. Take notes to prepare your next practice, but also take notes to touch on things that sometimes get overlooked during the game. We won a big tournament 2 weeks ago, and our leadoff hitter ended up hitting a 3-run homer in extra innings to win it. And one of the things I made a note of and discussed after the game was our last hitter in the lineup had an 11-pitch at bat right before that homer. He ended up striking out, but he fouled off 6 pitches. He laid off a couple good sliders down in the dirt, and he really made that pitcher work, right? That leadoff batter might have gotten pitched differently if he would have went down 1-2-3. But he went down 0-2. He battled and battled. He fouled balls off. He took some tough pitches, really made the pitcher work. And then that next hitter got a good pitch to drive, and he ended up hitting a homer. So again, I think some of those things get overlooked, and it also it pumps those players up with confidence when you make a note of it after the game. Like, Devin, you did a great job diving for that ball. You saved a run right there. Or Frankie, you got to an 0-2 count, you battled, somehow you put the ball in play after 10 pitches, ended up scoring a run from second base. So those little things that sometimes get overlooked by the big things, they all matter, and they all mean just as much going into the game. So again, the we over me mentality, and just trying to teach the players that we are a team. And unless every single person contributes to help us win, we're not going to win a ball game with 2 or 3 of our top players every single day. Everybody's going to have to do something to help us win.
That's awesome. This is an interesting one. Jess Potts says she's a 10U softball coach, got to our district tournament, and had a very scary situation with heat exhaustion. Our league plays softball throughout the day and spreads baseball during the week. What can I do to help either change the softball culture or help my girls playing multiple games during the day? I think that, instead of just having water bottles, making sure you have water coolers. Every girl has a water cooler. They're drinking tons of water throughout the day. They're drinking tons of water that night, the day before, the morning of, and they're really trying to stay hydrated, because I think that's one of the biggest things and one of the best things. You as a coach also, if you can get one of those canopies and put it over the girls and over the field, so that when they come in between innings, they can, be under the shade and not, be, blasting in the sun. But it is hard playing 2 or 3 games a day, or even 4 games a day. I mean, none of these things are going to totally cure any of that stuff, but knowing that you may have it, those things will definitely help. But I don't know how many times the kids run out of water and there's nowhere to get it. They bring a small water bottle, and it's like, that's not going to last them long. You need to get one of those big igloo jugs that, kids can drink throughout the day, and make sure that they can replenish that. And then also the shade is another big thing. So getting one of those canopies, and those are some things that can really help in between innings and while they're not playing.
We got some towels too. We threw them in the cooler, just some ice towels just to wrap around their necks or wrap around their heads in between innings, because we're going through a heat wave right now in New Jersey, and we played 3 games last weekend, and it was hot out there. So I think on top of what Duke said with the canopy, the extra waters, making sure the kids are eating and drinking the right things in between games. I saw 2 kids, they went over to the snack shack in between games, and they got a cheeseburger and a soda. Well, that's not going to help either. So I think the ice towels, the canopy, shuffling the lineup around as much as possible, and then just keeping an eye on them. Our catchers, I try to split games because it gets hot back there. They've got the gear on. You're catching multiple games in a day, doing whatever you can to just try to shuffle kids around and keep them cool, but also giving them the ownership of making sure we're eating and we're drinking the right things in between games to stay hydrated.
One of the questions that we got yesterday that Steve and I were talking to a coach about is, how do you help a coach when the other coaches don't buy into what they're trying to do? And I thought that was awesome. Coach Brian was asking, because he's played the game before, he's coaching, and there's 2 other dads that, Brian would come in with a practice plan, and the coaches were like, this stuff doesn't work. Why are we doing this? Why are we so organized? And by week 3, they loved it. They were going through it. They understood what they were doing. So sometimes change, makes people like, but once they kind of started working together, the team started doing well. They won a ton of games. And, so I think that is a situation sometimes where you have 3 different coaches on 3 different plans, or they have 3 different missions or 3 different goals to what they're trying to accomplish that season. So you getting together and sitting down and going over the plan for the year, what your goals are. Are you a win at all costs, or are you we want to develop the players so everyone's on the same page? So now when you have the practice plan and you're going through things, the communication is at a high level and everybody understands what's going on. Because there's nothing worse than, having four coaches on four different plans, and one coach is trying to do that, one thinks this, one thinks that, and then the kids are confused. It's bad for the culture. So I think that's really important of having those team meetings prior to the season with your players, with your parents, with the other coaches, so that you start the season off on the right foot and not on the wrong foot.
Yeah, plus it might drive a wedge in between the players because most coaches out there are a parent of one of the players on the team. So if they have frustrations about another coach, they're going home, and it's definitely being discussed in the car ride home or at the dinner table. So I think, being on the same page is key at the younger ages, as well as coaches discuss it with each other, right? Get into a discussion pregame, postgame, over dinner, talk with each other. This way, things get lost in translation easily. And when those conversations start happening around the kids, now the kids start talking back and forth. Oh, Coach Duke doesn't agree with Coach Steve. Coach Duke said Coach Steve made the wrong pitching change in the fourth inning. Kids don't need to hear that kind of stuff. So make sure you guys are discussing that on your own, pregame, postgame, or just, away from the kids.
Coach Santiago had a question. Going with the opposite of the selfish player, what advice would you give regarding passionate young players who get upset and may cry with their own self-perceived failure in a game filled with failure?
Coach Paul, that's a good one, man. And, we see it a lot, and it's usually the kids that are batting at the bottom of the order, the kids that, might be struggling to get a hit. Duke mentioned the quality at bat chart before, and then I mentioned taking notes throughout the game, trying to give your kids something to look at other than the statistics, because everybody's going to have a role, right? They might not be the 3 or 4 hitter right now, but they might have an opportunity to do something to help the team win today. So I think it's important that we as coaches address those things, as small as they might be, to give them the confidence. And I like to, try to pick out a few different kids after each game and say, Matthew, you did a really good job. Anybody notice Matthew was the first guy off the bench today, picking up his teammates, helping the guys out. He was the best teammate on the field today. And I think doing those things, calling out a player for something that they did that might have gotten overlooked is huge. And there's also those kids that need to be coddled a little bit. So if you see a kid in tears, put your arm around him, rein them in and say, you're going to get out. You're going to strike out. You're going to have bad days. I've been there before, but we still have an opportunity to win this game. You can help your team win by doing A, B, and C. And, I go through it a lot, with some of our guys where they might be having a rough day. Well, again, it's that we over me mentality. So finding a way, maybe just off to the side, it doesn't have to be yelling or screaming, but listen, I know you're struggling at the plate today, but you made a great play on defense right there. Or, you can do this or do this to help the team win. And somehow finding a way to motivate them. Because again, some players are going to need to be coddled. Some are going to need to be pushed. Those selfish players you might need to yell at them a little bit. But for those players that are struggling, maybe bottom tier of the team, finding something positive in their game that day to reflect on at the end in front of everybody, I think goes a long way for their confidence, as well as just, keeping them motivated and feeling as if they're an important part of the team.
It's good. Joey Bass, if you're having an 8U tryout, what kind of things are you doing, like drills, routines, etc.? Also, what are you looking at specifically in players? Well, the thing about the 8U is usually in most states, that's when kids are first starting to pitch. So you definitely have to have pitching stations. We do base running stations, so we'll make sure we get some measurables, such as, we have a pocket radar. So we'll see who throws the hardest. We'll have them hitting off a tee. We'll see who hits the ball the hardest. We'll have them run home to first, and we time that. That way you have specific measurables that you can measure the kid's athleticism with. Because one of the hardest things about a tryout is the kids that you then have to cut or that don't make the team. Well, if you have kids that, that gives you, instead of saying, oh, I think he hits better than him, I think this, or I think that, it's, well, listen, they're on the top tier, the top 10 percentage of ball exit speeds or who throws the hardest, and you kind of compile the data. It will help in giving kids that maybe don't make the team some things that they can focus on and work on. But we hit ground balls. So we have an infield station, put everybody at shortstop, hit them 6 ground balls. We put everybody in right field, have them all catch fly balls and throw the ball to second base. We have the catchers do some blocking, see who can throw down to second. And then we have the pitchers throwing off the mound. So those are some things that you definitely, it's almost like at any age tryout, you're looking for all the same things, but you need to make sure that you have enough pitchers at that level. So, and then of course we hit in the batting cage or we hit on the field, and then we do like a little simulated game, one team versus the other, and that way that'll really help narrow it down as well. So hopefully that helps with the 8U tryouts.
Yeah, that's good. We always try to make it a 2-day tryout. So day 1, we weed out those guys that really have no chance of making it. And then day 2, we bring them back and we try to structure a game, because some kids you'll see, they might crush the ball off the tee, but then they can't hit live pitching at all. Other kids might throw really good in the bullpen, but then can't find the plate when there's a batter standing in the batter's box. But just like Duke mentioned, I think giving them something to take home, especially for the players that you cut, giving them a program or a couple things they need to focus on goes a long way, right? It keeps the kids motivated. It keeps them excited maybe for next season. Because if you cut an 8U kid, they might be cut and say, man, I don't want to play baseball anymore. But if you say, you did these 2 things really well, but here are a couple things that you're a little bit below average on, here are a few things you need to do to get better, it might give them the motivation to, actually go home and work on it, and then hopefully show up next year and make the 9U team. But we definitely love doing the measurables, to give them some numbers, to give them some, areas of improvement, as well as the scrimmage. I think the scrimmage is huge because you really get to see them in a game atmosphere.
Got a good question from YouTube. My team's parents are split. Half of them are a win at all cost, and half want a developmental team. All I can say is that's trouble. That's a recipe for trouble right there, because that win at all cost parent could care less about anything. They could care less about development. Their kid all they want to do is win. That's the same person that, having a pitcher throw 170 pitches just to win the game because the pitcher's doing well. Well, that's a win at all cost parent. They don't understand that, maybe that kid then at age 13 is going to have arm problems, and they don't realize all that stuff. They can only see what they can see right now. So a lot of times the win at all cost parent is the one that all they care about is this second, winning this game, winning this trophy, doing this right now, where the developmental parent, the developmental coach is long-term. Well, the better we get the kids, the more games we're going to win, the more championships we're going to win long-term, the better ball players we're going to create, the better people we're going to create. That's what the developmental coach does. He gets everybody better. He helps the team get better. They're better culture type players and parents and long-term stuff. So when you have half and half, it as a coach, that makes it very hard, because you cannot please them both. You can only communicate that right in the beginning of the season of what you're going to do, how you're going to do things, what your goals are during tournament play, during maybe regular season play, what practices are going to be like, and kind of lay it all out so there are no surprises. Once a kid hits 85 pitches, just say at 10U, he's coming out. Well, everyone knows that then. It's not, well, how come he took him out? Why did he? No, because we feel that this is the number that, for a 10-year-old should be, or whatever that number may be. But there's those sort of things that happen for a reason. MLB Pitch Smart has specific things that Dr. Andrews and Major League Baseball put together to kind of help coaches with pitchers and trying to prevent arm injuries. And, whether you think they're wrong, right, or indifferent, there are things that are put in place to try to help that. And the win at all cost parent could care less about any rules, or they'll cheat and lie and steal and this and that just to win.
Yeah.
And when you're a coach that's not like that, it makes it very, very difficult, because you're always wrong. You're always doing the wrong thing. So I don't know if that helps you at all. All I can tell you is that just needs to be communicated early, and what you're doing, and maybe those kids just don't make your team. Because I don't know what else. What do you have?
No, that's a tough one, and I think every age group's going to have it. Every parent's going to have it. I'm sorry, every team's going to have it. I'm a big believer that if you're playing a game where everybody's going to make the playoffs no matter what, I bat everybody. I give everybody an opportunity. We pride ourselves on development here, especially with our teams. But doesn't mean we're not competitive, and we're not trying to win games, and we're not trying to win championships. So what we like to do is, pool play where everybody's making the playoffs. We're going to bat everybody. We're going to give everyone an opportunity to get better. Maybe playoffs, we cut the lineup down to 10. Championship game, we might cut it down to 9. But just like Duke said, as long as that stuff is addressed prior to the season, here's our goals, here's our expectations. This is the way we're going to handle our pitching. This is the way we're going to handle our playing time. Those are the keys to eliminating some of those conflicts, because it should be development first. We're trying to develop these players. We're talking youth baseball and youth softball. We're not in the major leagues where there's 35 guys on the roster and only 9 people are playing. We have a roster of 12. We have 12. Some teams have 13, 14, but we got to get everybody in. Our job, and again, the trophies and the championships are cool, but a true test to how good of a coach you are is how many of those kids sign up to play the next season. And we've said it before, and it's so important. Keeping these kids playing the game, allowing them to have fun, allowing them to compete and enjoy themselves, and really just telling the parents to go enjoy it. Go sit outside the outfield fence, let the coaches coach, let the players play, and just sit back and enjoy your kid watching them play.
This is a good one, too. We run into this question a lot, and it says, do you guys do anything with your local league ball? How do we bridge the gap between travel ball while keeping the local leagues relevant? Let's be honest, kids aren't starting out on 5U travel teams. They have to start somewhere, and the local leagues have to be a place, but we're losing players every year. That's a great question. One of the things that one of the towns close to us does is they make all the travel players, they have to play rec. So in order to play on the travel team, they have to play rec. And what that does is it gives the rec program enough players, and you'll find that in the beginning, you'll half of the kids will complain, why do I have to play rec? But then you'll get the other kids that love playing rec. They're playing with their buddies. They're playing with their friends. The other kids are looking up to you as a player. You're able to help them and, work with them, because then it's just a great way to realize, like, they're playing the game because it's fun and they're with their friends. A lot of people want to do that. And then once, then you have some towns that don't have travel programs, and those are sometimes the kids that will then leave and go play travel but we support all the local little leagues, and we, do sponsorships with them. We work together with them, because the bigger all the leagues are, the bigger and more kids are going to be playing the game and the sport. So I think that, travel organizations should support the local little leagues and help them to the best of their ability to kind of grow their programs. And, that's something that one of the local towns does around here, and it works out great because they're keeping their numbers to 700-800 kids in their rec program. And they have good travel programs because of it, because those kids are continuing to play. And maybe that kid at 6U that wasn't that good is really good at 8. But at least they're staying in the game and they're still playing it because there is a league to play in.
Kids have so many opportunities with so many sports out there. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of the numbers dwindle. You're seeing kids go play lacrosse. They're going to play soccer. They're playing year-round, specializing in year-round sports. And it's actually the reason why we started Dominate the Diamond. We ran free coaches clinics for all the local little leagues for years, trying to equip the coaches as best as we possibly could every spring to keep those kids playing, to allow them to have fun practices and fun games and teach them how to coach the game the right way. And it's really what started Dominate the Diamond and gave us the idea to create all of this. So we're very, very engaged and try to do whatever we can to help those local little leagues out.
Premier Fast Pitch, and this will be the last question. Premier Fast Pitch. Hi, guys. I've got kids that are so competitive that when they make a mistake or don't have a quality at bat, they walk off the field with sour faces and they won't even talk or even tear up. How do I change this? That takes time. That takes time. It takes you as a coach to, like Steve said before, letting them know that they're going to fail and they're going to make mistakes and they're going to strike out. They're going to miss balls. But how we respond and how we get the parents to respond to that is going to help them dramatically. If they hear mom or dad saying, hey, that's all right, Johnny, get it next time. That's okay, Maddie, make sure you do this. Instead of, a lot of times, what do you hear? You hear mom or dad screaming from the dugout. You hear them screaming from the stands. You hear people yelling, like if they make a mistake, get down on the ball. How could you miss that? And it's their own parents screaming at them, making them feel like, I would love to have some of the parents actually have to be on the field and hear and see what the kids actually go through. We saw one of the funniest videos the other day. It was a hitting instructor with a kid and they're hitting, and the dad starts yelling at the kid. the instructor actually put him in the batting cage, cranked the cage up to like 70 miles an hour, and the dad didn't hit one ball. Swinging, missing, couldn't, and the kid was laughing, the coach was, and they were kind of like heckling the dad, and it was like he must have missed 70 balls in a row, and it was like, okay, so now what? So that's what the kid feels like. So if you can't do it, stay out of the cage and just pump them up with confidence, and you'll see that the kids will, their confidence will go through the roof. So it's just kind of how we deal with that as a group, as parents, as supporters of those kids, that, hey, just slap them on the back when they're done. They come in and, give them some, tell them maybe what they did wrong. Hey, we just got to stay a little bit lower on the ball. But it's not something that we're screaming out on the field, 3 coaches and the parents yelling at kids back and forth. It's, and then just letting them know that it's, everyone on the team also has to be a leader as well. Maybe the shortstop's talking to the third baseman, hey, don't worry about it, Rachel. You get it next time. Let's go. We got this. That immediately makes you feel better. Hey, Rachel, take a deep breath. We got this. The next ground ball is going to be hit to us. Makes us feel better than, kind of letting the person feel like they're out there by themselves. And so we all just have to keep talking and communicating and working together so that we don't have that blow up bad inning and every single person on the field is, down in the dumps making error after error.
I was just going to say the same exact thing. I think finding 2 or 3 leaders on your team and sitting down with them on the side and talking about situations like that, talking about how do we communicate with our teammates when we make an error, or if somebody has a bad at bat and strikes out, we got to pick them up when they walk back into the dugout. And I think your players are going to feed off the energy of the leaders on the team, positive or negative, right? If your leaders are throwing their helmets, well, now everybody's going to be throwing their helmets. If the leaders on the team are sulking and complaining, well, now everybody's going to kind of follow their lead. But just like Duke said, if the leaders are the ones picking each other up, hey, so what? You got them next time. Hey, so what? I made an error last inning too. Like, next ball's coming us. Be ready to go. That kind of leadership is going to it's going to really grow, and it starts to get contagious, and you start to see the attitudes change a little bit because, again, we're going to have bad at bats. We're going to look silly. We're going to do bad things, and it's, as Duke said, it's a game of failure. You're going to fail a heck of a lot more than you succeed. So finding a way to get a few leaders on the team that have that good energy, that have that positive vibe about them, to pick one another up. Now all of a sudden you start to see it gets contagious, and more people start to do it.
Awesome. So I think that's it. So thanks everybody for joining us today. We hope you like the topics, the questions that we had. Make sure that even though when the show's over, you can continue to add comments, and we'll do our very best to get to those, whether they be drills, whether they're game situations, whether it's parenting questions, player questions. Keep them coming. We'll help out the best that we can, and we'll see you next week, 11 o'clock Eastern time on the Dominate the Diamond show. Remember to go out and dominate the diamond today.